They were supposed to be the rivals, the obstacle, the group standing in the way of the main characters. But something strange happened. Fans started cheering for them too, not instead of the main group, not in spite of them, alongside them, with the same intensity, the same emotional investment, the same desperate hope that they would somehow find a way through. They were written as the competition, the cold, sharp, elite duo from an entirely different world. They were supposed to put pressure on the main characters and then step aside. Instead, they stayed, not in the story, but in the hearts of the fandom. This is the story of how that happened. This rival group was a two-member school idol duo from an elite private academy, a school with a long history and a reputation that set them apart immediately. The group was formed and led by the older sister, a third-year student with cool confidence and a sharp presence. She made it clear from the start that she was not there to make friends. Her partner was her younger sister. She matched that energy with something even more intense, a fierce competitiveness that barely contained the emotions running underneath it. Together, their color was red. Red for passion, red for danger, red for a group that did not come to participate. They came to win. Their debut song was called Self-Control. That title said everything about who they were. They did not perform with warmth or vulnerability. They performed with precision, power, and controlled intensity. They were not friendly rivals who secretly admired the main characters. They were rivals who genuinely believed they were better. And for a while, it was hard to argue with them. Every good story needs pressure. The main group had a mission: save their school, build their dream. But a mission without resistance is just a checklist. You need something pushing back, something that makes the stakes feel genuine. This rival duo was that pressure. They showed up at the first major competition and made the stakes immediately clear. They had experience, they had polish, they had already been competing before the main group had even found their footing. But here is what separated them from a throwaway rival group. They had their own dream. They were not just obstacles placed in the story to block the main characters. They had a reason for being there that had nothing to do with anyone else. They wanted to follow in the footsteps of a legendary duo who had proved two people could win. That was the dream the older sister had built. That was the dream the younger sister had committed to alongside her. They were not defined by the main group. They were defined by their own ambition. And that ambition made them feel like real competitors rather than plot devices. You can explain a rival group's appeal in words, but sometimes the real answer is simpler. They were just that good. When they performed, the energy in the room changed. Their debut song did not sound like a typical school idol performance. It sounded like a declaration. It had edges, it had weight. It was the kind of music that made you sit up and pay attention whether you wanted to or not. It was not just the music, it was the way they performed it. The older sister's cool authority on stage, the younger sister's intensity, the way she moved like she was proving something with every step, two people operating in complete sync, each amplifying the other, creating something that felt bigger than the sum of its parts. Fans noticed. They could not help it. Their songs were not filler. Their performances were not throwaway moments. These were songs that lived in your head long after the episode ended. And when you love a group's music enough, you start caring about the group. That is not a narrative decision. That is just how music works. The emotional story of this anime belonged to the main group. That was the design. These were the arcs the audience was supposed to invest in most. The rival duo existed to test the main group, to show them what they needed to become. And for a while, that worked exactly as intended. But the better the rival duo became, the harder it was to see them as simply the obstacle, because obstacles do not cry. And the younger sister cried. When the results came in at the big competition, she was not where she needed to be. She did not disappear into the background. She stood there with tears she was trying to hold back, and the camera did not look away. That was the moment for many fans. Not a performance, not a song, just a girl who wanted something desperately, did not get it, and felt that loss completely. After that moment, they were never just the rivals again. The younger sister was introduced as the sharp one, the intimidating one. She performed a bold acrobatic move over the main group at their very first meeting. a statement that said everything about how she saw the competition. But underneath that confidence was something more complicated. In the second season, the show revealed that she had always struggled to connect with people. She kept her distance from classmates. She found it difficult to open up. The idol group had not just been her dream, it had been her world. The one place where her intensity made complete sense. The one space where being exactly who she was felt like enough. That context changed everything about how her ambition read. She was not competing because she was arrogant. She was competing because she had built her entire sense of belonging around this dream. Losing was not just a setback, it threatened the structure she had built her confidence on, and her sister was the person she had built it with. At the center of everything this group did was a relationship that had nothing to do with competition. They were sisters, and that bond gave them their emotional weight. The older sister was the one who started it. She built the group, she set the standard, she carried herself with cool certainty. But the younger sister was the one who made you feel it. When you watched her push herself, when you saw how fiercely she fought, when you understood that so much of that fire came from wanting to be worthy of what her sister had built, the whole thing became something more than a rival storyline. It became a story about what siblings will do for each other, what we will endure and fight for the people we love most and want most to impress. Their dream was not purely about winning. At its core, it was about two sisters doing something meaningful together, and fans recognized that. They felt it, and they could not simply root against it. They were supposed to be the rivals the main group defeated on the way to something bigger. And in the story, that is technically what happened, but the fandom did not follow that script. Instead, fans kept them alive. Through fan art, fan fiction, and rewatches that paused on moments the show moved past too quickly. Through genuine love for their music, songs that stayed with people long after the anime ended. Through arguments about whether their performances were actually better than anyone admitted. They performed live, alongside the main group, at real concerts. Their voice actresses stood on real stages as these characters. That only happens when an audience has decided these characters matter too much to leave behind. Maybe that is the truest measure of whether a rival group worked. Not whether they won, not whether the story asked you to love them, but whether, after everything, you found yourself loving them anyway. They did not win the competition, but they won something harder to calculate and more difficult to take away. Maybe they were never just the rivals the main group had to defeat. Maybe they were the rivals this fandom needed to love. That is the thing about rival characters in anime. The writers design them to be defeated, to serve the story of someone else, to exist in the shadow of the main characters. But sometimes a rival refuses to stay in that shadow. Sometimes they become too real, too human, too easy to love. And when that happens, the fandom makes a different choice. They choose to care about everyone on that stage, not just the group they were told to root for. That is what happened here, and it is worth asking why.